The Value of Words Literature Festival 2020. I welcome you all to a session which I think will be a great session with Madhu Gurung, a much well-deserved nominee for this year's literary prize. Congratulations, Madhu.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, Madhu, when I read your first book, The Keeper of Memories, I knew that we have a star now in the literary firmament, and I'm so glad, so happy to see you here today. Today we are going to be talking about the book that's been nominated, Tibet with My Eyes Closed. So, Madhu, let's hear, how did this book start? Was it an incident, a person, or a dream? I mean, how did this start?
Okay. You know, I got a very unexpected phone call. And it was a person with a very French accent who wanted to come and meet me. I was that time in Delhi, and I was working in the UNFPA as the media consultant.
Yes, yes.
And he had read something, and he told me over the phone, I read something you had written for the Hindu. And he'd gone to a lot of trouble by getting the number and calling me up.
Yes.
And he came and met me. His name was Francois, and he was a photographer. And he just came and he said, you know, I want to show you something. And he showed me some of the most beautiful black and white photographs of old Tibetan people. And I was completely fascinated, and I said, they're so beautiful, you should actually send them to the National Geographic, you know. And he said, I can take photographs, but I can't write. So why don't you come and meet them, you know, see, you know. And so I went to Dharamshala, and we went to this old age home, Jampaling. And I met people. I mean, I met old people, the people who the only people who had seen free Tibet.
Yes, so you see, you're going to be entering an enchanting world with Madhu, a world which very few of us know about. You know, we see the Tibetan children on the road, and we talk to them. They know pretty good Hindi. We see we smile at the kind-faced monks. Then we chat with the cheerful women who are selling their goods on the streets, and we say, wow, everything is fine, everything's okay, everything's wonderful. But when you read this book, you realize that everything is not what it seems. And that's the world I'm going to be taking you into by talking to Madhu. Madhu, when you went to Dharamshala and you went to that old age home called Jampaling, and you actually met people who had seen a free Tibet. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. I met a whole lot of them, and some stories were so stark that they stand out, you know. And I want to talk about one particular woman. Her name was Yanchin. She had her hair, you know, how the Tibetan women wear in braids, you know, and the two braids with red silk. And she had small turquoise earrings, and she had one bad eye. And so when we started talking, she talked about how she got into India, you know, and so she talked about the time that in the month of March 1959, she and her husband, you know, they were farmers, and they got their produce to the Lhasa vegetable market. And when they were there was complete chaos, you know, and people were running helter-skelter, and everyone was saying the Jamas are here, the Chinese are here, they're killing everybody, run. And in that exodus, the husband and wife, you know, they had two children at that point of time, 14-year-old boy who was a monk, a young girl who was 10 and lived with her grandmother in the village. And in the exodus, they also kept moving. And she kept telling her husband, please, let's go back, get the girl, get the child, you know. But he kept telling her, I promise, when we go to India, because that's where everybody was heading, I will come back. We will come back. We will come back. And like that, they get into India, and they start working as a road gang. They're the people who made those roads, you know, and she'd lost her eye in that one of the blasts that
while-
had
while
occurred,
construction,
while
yeah.
working. And her husband, he, over a period of time, every year, time flew by. And every Losar, he would say, I promise next year we will celebrate Losar in Tibet. And it never happened because he ended up getting a heart condition and he passed away. And there was no one to look after her, so she ended up in Jampaling.
Jampaling.
Yeah.
So that's where you also met the elders, and they were, and even till now, you say that they dream of going back one day.
Yeah, they do.
So
They
tell,
do.
I mean, what you mean?
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
know.
yeah, tell me about that, because it's very poignant, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
They
It is.
actually have a dream that one day they will go back to
Yeah,
Tibet.
yeah. It is. It's actually enormously moving, because what happened with Yanchen was that, years had gone by and she's been in Jampaling, and one day she got a visitor, who had come to visit some people in the old age home. And he says, I think I've met your son. And he's no longer a monk. And she says, she didn't believe him. And a few days later was Losar. It was almost, 45, so many years later. And
The son who was left behind in,
he was a monk.
in Tibet.
Yeah.
All right.
And that year on Losar, she got a phone call. She had never got a phone call. She didn't know how to use the phone. And so people taught her how to hold the phone and say hello. And all she managed was hello.
Yes.
And the voice at the other end just said, Amo, mother,
Yes.
and kept weeping. For half an hour, they kept holding on to the phone
So
and
how
just
did this
weeping.
contact take place? I mean, who informed him that his mother was...
The same person.
The same person.
Said, your mother is alive and she's in this old age
And he
home.
recognized her.
Yes, he did. He
Yes,
did.
yes, yes.
And
Amazing.
so, yes, it is. I mean, you never know of life, no?
Yes, yes.
And so, after that, he would keep calling and he would keep telling her, why don't you come?
Yes, yes.
And, we are okay, we are fine, we would like you to come and stay in Tibet.
Yes.
And she said, I am too old to move now, and I'm very happy that I'm here because His Holiness the Dalai Lama is close by, and it's better for me to go from here.
Yes,
So that was Yanchen's story, really. Yeah.
And then you said when you came out of that of the place, and then you met a woman.
Yeah, I did.
That was a fascinating story. I mean,
Oh yes.
that was a
I think
beautiful story in the book. I hope you'll all read her book.
Yeah.
Tell me, tell the viewers.
Yeah.
About
Okay, I came out of that thing, it was evening, and there was this woman I had seen while going to Jampaling, and she had this long handled broom and she was sweeping the Kora.
Yeah.
And when I reached her in the evening, I was going back to my room, and when I in the evening as well, I saw her that she's still finishing the last part of the Kora.
Yes, yes.
So I went up to her and says, oh, it's so cold, come and have tea. So she came and she sat down, and we just got talking, and I said, why do you sweep,
Yes, yes.
Is that something that you want to do? She says, in life you always have two choices. I always have a choice of sitting around getting old and just dying and fighting with my friends, or I can be of use to somebody.
How wonderful.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
And so when I do the Kora, I also do all my prayers.
I see.
And so that I thought that was such a fascinating thing of way of looking at life.
Yes.
And
You do something and do something useful instead of just sitting and moping.
Yeah. And I met the same woman, when I was going back. I was going to catch the bus back to Delhi.
Yes.
And I saw her and I said, oh, I'm going, and thank you so much. I want to give you something, She says, and I was trying to give her some money, and she said, no, I don't want anything. I want to give you something with all my heart.
Yes.
And she reached inside her chuba and she took out her prayer beads,
wonderful.
and she gave me the prayer beads. Years later, when I was doing the book, when I recounted this to a Tibetan friend of mine, he said, you don't know how lucky you are, because the prayers that have gone into each bead and polish of the, and polish the
yes.
bead with its prayers,
Yes,
you're very lucky to have it.
It almost seems like karmic for you to
Yeah,
write
yes.
this book.
Yeah.
So
True,
besides
true.
these people, did you meet young people? What are their dreams, their aspirations? And I mean, it's okay, the old people are still dreaming of Tibet. They're dreaming of a miracle.
Yeah.
But what about the young? What are they thinking?
A lot of the young Tibetans, most of them, because of job opportunities, want to go out. They all want to, it's
Out
like
of the country.
Yes, it's like go west, young man.
Yes, yes.
Almost all of them talk about wanting to go out because opportunities are much wider. They have greater opportunities outside. Most of them are either doing IT work in places like Bangalore, or they are doing sweater business. Women are doing nursing. Some people are running restaurants.
No, but in India itself.
Yes, in India.
Where are they employed? I mean, what do they want to do? What are their dreams within this country?
See, if you ask a young Tibetan to sing a song, his first song will be a Bollywood song.
Okay.
Because I think that is something which
that connects everybody, even in the Northeast.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So that first song will be a Bollywood song. They would know more about Hindi, idioms and way of talking and things like that than their own Tibetan roots. It's not that they are not Tibetan. They are. That Tibetanness cannot be.
But I'm worried more about employment of the youth. This always causes problems.
Yes, it does.
So what are they?
See,
in the hotels, in the tourism department.
Yeah, but see, like anything where they have to travel, because they have these I-cards.
I-cards,
yeah,
yes,
and so when they have to travel out, it becomes a problem because they have to inform the police that they are moving out, they are coming at a particular time, and then that narrows down the work, opportunities. And a lot of them had, in bulk joined the SFF. The Tutu establishment. I mean, we've seen them in Galwan. A lot of them have actually been deployed there as well. So this is the first time.
What about, do they want to be absorbed into the Indian milieu and get Indian passports or something? Have they ever thought of that, or is it possible or not?
Yes.
When you talk to them, what did they feel about?
Talking about the passport, I think the first person who got a passport was a princess. I'm not getting a name. And the other person whose story is there in the book is Lobsang Wangyal.
Yes.
And Lobsang is the one who has actually, approached. He's read the law through and through, and he's got the passport. But when you ask him, I mean, he's gone through terrible trauma. The only thing that's got him going was his determination to get that passport. There is a lot of red tapeism still involved. There are these affidavits that have to be made. There's a lot of court work. A lot of them don't own properties, and so the permanent address cannot be given. So these are real issues that Tibetans face. And also, I think in their own way, a lot of them feel that
they want to remain Tibetan.
Yes. They give away, if you take on the passport, it's not that they don't go abroad and take on the passport of, citizenship of that country. They do. But it is like giving up their Tibetanness, so a lot of them hesitate to do that.
So what kind of identity do they identify with? The young people. I understand the old just think we are Tibetans, that's it. But what about the young? What kind of, do they have a crisis of identity?
No, I don't think they have a crisis of identity.
They're very sure of their Tibetanness.
They're sure that they are Tibetan. But where they stand as a Tibetan in a larger world picture is when a nation is not there, when they are without a homeland. That is always a crisis. In fact, if you look at all the protests that have happened, the self-immolations that have happened, there have been about 158 to this day.
I'm shocked about this.
Yes. And so it's a protest. It's their way of protesting.
Self-immolation because of protest for what?
Protesting against the Chinese rule.
Chinese
rule.
Right.
So it's not a happy situation
it's
for
not a
them.
happy
Yeah.
situation.
But you know, there is, I mean, among all this darkness, there is light.
There's
you know,
light.
Yes.
Because they have this concept of karma when they accept things as they are.
Yeah.
But how do they reconcile between the non-violent philosophy of their religion and these violent protests? Can you talk about the
it's not a
resistance?
violent, see, the protests are never violent. Self-immolation is never a violent thing. It's just, it's a very Buddhist way of saying, you know, of protesting, because you're self-immolating yourself.
Yes.
That is your
There's
protest.
nothing aggressive about it as
Nothing.
such.
You know, there's nothing aggressive. I mean, when I talk about a little hope, there is now the Sikyong elections that are going to come up. There are 8 candidates in the running. And who going to, you know, so the Tibetans as a community is still very strong. They are going to come up with their president. Currently, Dr. Lobsang Sangye is the president. And so a lot of young Tibetans are involved in the cause of creating a lot of networks, you know, trying to get people to come on to the thing. People will be, you know, voting.
And what's the aim?
The aim is to keep this thing, you know, to have, even if they don't have a homeland, I mean, they have a virtual homeland, you know.
Virtual homeland,
yes. I mean, that hope is there.
Yes.
And, you know, who's to know what's going to happen tomorrow? Who thought that the sun would set on the British Empire? You know, look at India. I mean, if they are in India, the young are very Tibetan, but they are the alternate Tibetans who have their own history. They are creating their own history.
They're creating their own history.
And I think that is something very, very powerful. You know?
Because I feel that, you know, identity is so important. Because like when I came to, say, North India from the Northeast 50 years ago to join college, and I don't know what my father and mama were talking about, but they said, now you must be sure of your identity. That you are, because my mother is Khasi, my father's from East Bengal. So I think he also felt, he knew the importance of being, you know. So now you're a Khasi and that is your identity. You've been registered as scheduled tribe, okay? And, but of course, don't touch the scholarship. And I was totally like confused, what are they talking about? But once I reached Delhi, a most bewildering city, a harsh city, and it was very hot. I realized that knowing who you are was so important. Knowing that you belong somewhere, that you're rooted somewhere. Okay, you're Indian, obviously, in this very immense country of so much diversity. So what about you? I mean, like, what do you feel about identity? Because I think it's important to know. I mean, of course, the Gorkhas came hundreds of years ago as conquerors, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. They did. I mean, you know, most people in India think that the Gorkhas are the imports of the Raj.
That's not true.
That's not true. Because around 1780-88, they had already taken over Sikkim. That's the Gorkha army. And in 1790, at the behest of a Garhwali nobleman called Harshdev Joshi, who wanted to become the king of Kumaon, he invited the Gorkha army into Kumaon. So the Gorkhas crossed River Kali, came into Kumaon, overran it, and they started ruling Kumaon. And in 1803, Garhwal fell. And then onwards, they carried on to what was then in British East India Company's time, the Punjab hills. They went right up to Sutlej.
Himachal, Garhwal, they're all under the
Gorkha rule. Yes. So at one point of time, right from Teesta to Sutlej, 17,000 square miles, not even kilometers, miles, was Gorkha territory. Then the British reinforced, and we had the Anglo-Gorkha War in 1814, and it went on for a year, after which a Treaty of Sagauli was signed. And the Treaty of Sagauli got the British to recruit the Gorkhas. So the Gorkhas have been there since then. But yes, if we talk about the identity, as a Gurung, I'm constantly asked if I am from Nepal. And I am the 6th generation here. And I think I don't need to answer where I am from, because in our community it is considered really bad form to ask anyone, where are you from?
Where are you from? But it's so common in India, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
They used to ask me, and then I say Shillong, and 50 years ago in Delhi, say, oh, Ceylon, that's a beautiful island. So I can imagine how you must be feeling, and your husband being, a very celebrated soldier, a lieutenant general, and you served in the army for so many generations, to be asked whether you're Indian or not.
Yeah, I know.
So what do you normally say?
I mean, from here, and like, then they want to know here, but where exactly?
Yes.
I mean, like, Dehradun. Oh, okay. So, like, I mean, I can't even dream of asking anyone from Bengal, are you from Bangladesh? Or anyone speaking Tamil, are you from Sri Lanka?
Yes.
Or anyone speaking Urdu, are you from Pakistan?
But that's very common
I would,
yes.
It'll make me cringe and die. I've never asked that question. But yes,
but when you met the Tibetans, do they feel this kind of, this huge gap between the,
yes.
They do feel.
Yeah, I mean, there's this enormous longing to be
they're
in your
very reticent. They're so reticent about talking about themselves. I mean, you met them and you got to know the people. Why are they so reticent?
I don't know. I really felt that when, first of all, I think when I felt that I wanted to tell their stories, and I wanted to tell their stories after hearing what they went through. Yes. But Tibetans, what they do is when they tell you the stories, okay, hum Tibet se yahan aaye the, and fir mera husband ka death ho gaya. And then they will, so it's bits here
and staccato and
all
very
the years.
Abrupt.
Yeah, years are not spoken about. And the more
nothing personal. They won't tell you
nothing. And I remember asking one guy who thought his brother was dead, Sangye, that's the first story, Zinda. I remember asking Sangye, who met his brother, whom he had thought was dead. In Tibet after 23, 24 years. And he meets a stranger, and I said, what did you feel? So he says, he thought for a while and he says, Roya hoga. And then I understood what it meant, because I think if you have suffered loss the way they have. I mean, every time you recount it, it makes you bleed.
Yeah, it's like opening up a wound.
Yeah, oh yes.
So you feel that reticence, because I feel it sometimes in Missouri. I want to chat with them, I want to talk to them, but they won't go beyond the basics.
Oh no.
I think it's the pain.
Yeah, it's too painful.
Of remembering.
Yes. And so it's better not to talk too much about it. Yes. And it's actually very, very humbling to hear. But
you managed to get quite a few stories.
Yes, but silences speak for themselves. What is left unsaid says a lot. So
they'll say a few sentences, and then you take up from there. And about the flags, that's very interesting, the way you divided your stories into different prayer flags. I'm sure the viewers like to know about them, because I learned a lot from that.
Okay. Where the flags are concerned, there is a point in your life that you reach that you start seeking for answers.
Yes.
And I think I did it when I lost my dad.
Yes.
When I was 40 at that point of time, and when he passed away, I tried to get answers for a lot of things of, why I wasn't there when he died and things like that.
Yes.
I didn't get an answer in any religion. I ended up getting all the answers in the Buddhist religion. Buddhism answered it for me.
How is that?
It allowed you to give you all the answers of the wise. Buddhism tells you that each time a river flows by, a new river has, you take a dip in a river and the river flows by, a new river has flown by. And you have to let go.
It's about letting go. That's very beautiful.
Yeah, it is. And so the more it interested me, I started when I did my stories, I looked at it and I said, all these stories have colors, and those colors, I needed to actually pinpoint them to the colors of the flags. So for the Tibetans, the blue, right on top, is the color of the sky. The white is the wind.
Wind.
Yeah, and the red is the fire. And that is why when I talk about the resistance and things like that,
Yes.
the story, the red is that fire.
Yeah.
The water is the green, and earth is the yellow.
Yellow.
Yeah.
Okay, so you divided your
Yeah,
story.
so that's how I divided the stories.
Yes, yes.
And when I wrote it, I didn't even think about the flag at all.
Yes, yes.
But I think the flags, the prayers that are written in the flag,
Like what do they write on the flag?
you know, it's all mantras, you know, and it's all for the well-being of each and every sentient being. You know, you can be a
Yes,
human, you
yes.
can be an animal, and even when, and it gets
So
carried.
they tie them up
Yeah.
in the,
Yeah.
so they're sort of kind of spreading
Yeah.
vibrations.
Yeah,
from those.
and it stands for wisdom, for good luck, for happiness, for everyone's, all the prayers that
Yeah.
a person can
Out of
actually.
all the God's creations, animate and inanimate.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when it gets bleached in the sun, you know, it still continues because it's still there, you know,
Yes,
in
yes,
the
yes,
universe.
Yes. So like now we're going through this crisis, like the pandemic, you know, what would you like to say about the Tibetan religion philosophy which can interest people? I mean, beyond acceptance.
Yeah, and I think
it-
tolerance. I think one of the things
Tolerance
that
and compassion.
oh yes, I think that is something that you know that they teach you. I mean, they don't even teach it; they live it.
They live it.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
And you know, to be kind. I
Yes.
think as human beings, we are increasingly not kind. We
Yes.
are not kind to our own. We are not kind to the animals around
yes,
us.
Yes, yes.
So just kindness and compassion and
But then,
tolerance.
do you think the world is changing because of that?
Yeah, I
I
think
mean, your
it's
personal life and experience, you meet so many people, you're involved in so many activities. Do you think this has come in compassion, tolerance, and so on?
Yeah, I think, you know, this pandemic has come at a time when it's made people step back and to think about where they are heading.
Yes, yes.
I mean, is it jet set all the time?
Yeah.
I mean, is it where they want their lives to go? And I think that's the pause.
I think it's
That's-
made a
yeah, it's
difference.
made people more mellow, made
Yes.
them more reflective,
Yes,
you
yes,
know,
yes.
so that's helped.
So what about, what is your next book going to be?
Yeah, you know, I'm working on it, but you know, it's like really difficult because for each and every book of mine, I do a lot of research.
Yes.
And
you can't travel at the moment.
Yeah, I can't. And
So the main source of research for this book was Dharamshala.
Dharamshala, and actually I had to research on everything. And I used this very beautiful library in Rajpur
Says
called the
the-
Songten Library.
Okay, you
yeah,
used
I
that.
did.
Okay.
I did. I used that, and I'm
a
really
lot.
grateful for you know all the things that the books that the kind of books that they had, and of course talked to a lot of people. It was, you know.
But is there one character in this amazing range of characters in your book who's left a deep impression on you?
Oh,
who
each
you will
one.
never forget?
I think I won't forget any one of them, you know. I mean, each and every one was, you know, marvelous. Like, even for example, we haven't talked about Mariko, you
No,
know.
we haven't talked.
Mariko, the who was a monk
Yes.
and decided that, you know, she wanted to come out on her own and become a transgender.
Yes, yes.
And is now an icon for the Tibetans.
Where does she live?
She lives in Dharamshala.
Dharamshala.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
then how did she go through that struggle of saying, I don't want to become a monk, I want to change my gender?
Yeah.
And how did
it's
the
been a huge
community-
struggle.
It's a huge struggle. They didn't
Yeah.
accept it easily.
Yeah, no.
Not even the owned people, because they
No.
believe in acceptance, don't they?
Yeah, but I think it's been really hard because you end up in a monastery
Yes, yes.
and then you decide, oh, you know, but I love fashion and I'm actually, you know, a woman
Yeah.
trapped in a man's body.
Yeah.
And I think her transition has been really difficult.
Difficult.
Yeah.
So she's there in Dharamshala, and
Yeah,
what is she
she's-
doing?
She works, she does a lot of photo shoots, you know, she works for the young people.
Yes, yes.
And one of the things that, you know, I think, you know, you asked me a question about the young Tibetans.
Yes.
I think one of the things that the young Tibetans do is also always give back to the community. And so she's very clear that I will never do anything to shame, you know, the robes that I had once worn. as a monkhood.
That's one of the unwritten rules, that we must always give back to our community.
Yeah. Unspoken.
And what about, what do they feel they've contributed to India, for example? Or do they?
Oh, okay, a lot. I mean, a lot. See, one of the things, thank you for that question, because when I really look at it, I think they've contributed enormously. Look at the SFF. You know, the Tutu establishment, which came up in the winter of 1962. I mean, the huge war that India and China fought. The Tibetans have never actually, they were raised to, you know, with the hope that they would be fighting for their own homeland. But they've never done that. Instead, they have fought all the wars for India, whether it is 1971, whether it is the Blue Star, you know, and all the things. The only time that they've actually been visible is now in Galwan, you know, and I think finally it's a patch of sunlight that they need to have been celebrated, and they are celebrated. So that's one part of it. The other thing is giving India such a huge thing of Buddhism, you know. And I think I met in the course of the book, I met Samdang Rinpoche, and he's very, very respected and revered Rinpoche. And he said something, you know, in every adversity, there is a silver lining. I mean, had the Tibetans not been forced to leave their homeland, no, the world wouldn't know about Tibetan Buddhism, you know. That's I know.
Because we've left our homeland, people have realized that we have sort of,
and to be able to blossom elsewhere, and to make it, and to recreate your life. I think that gives you that, you know, the spirit, the endurance and hope.
So tell us something about Mustang. I mean, that was very interesting about the not so peace-loving bit.
In my book, Mustang is, I've called it in the footsteps of Buddha's warriors. And it's in the red because, you know, I come from an army background. And, you know, I've always heard war stories. And when I looked at all the Tibetan stories that I had, and I started reading up on the Tibetans, I found that the only fire that the Tibetans ever, you know, had, you know, besides their past history, was in Mustang, you know, and the resistance. Just to backtrack a bit, in 1958 or something, this Chuse Gandruk, which is the resistance, was formed, and it was formed in a place called Loka, and they got help from the CIA, and the CIA trained them, paradropped the 6 men, and the Chuse Gandruk, which is an old traditional name for Kham and Amdo, the two regions of Tibet, which means you know, 4 rivers and 6 ranges. This traditional, this Chuse Gandruk were the people who formed the human shield for the Dalai Lama when he left Tibet. They come back in the March of 1959, and when they come back, the Chinese have already occupied Tibet, and so they leave. You know, some go to Nepal and some come to India, and in 1960, they home on to a place called Mustang, which is the westernmost part of Tibet, Nepal, and it's very close to Tibet. And it's at the height of 15, you know, it goes up to the height of 15,000 feet. So in a very narrow gorge called the Kali Gandagi Gorge, that is where the resistance had their camp. And from there they would carry on raids into Tibet. And of course, aided, by the CIA. And how a typical raid would take place would be of interest to people. You know, the Tibetans had all their lives actually had horses, but they had to actually walk up, you know, all the way. They had a good set of, because they were trained as guerrilla warriors, they had a good spy network. So they knew when the Chinese convoys and camps would be around. And they would hit that. You know, it would take them about a week to reach that their destination. They would ambush and retreat
Run back.
immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah, immediately had to.
On foot.
Yes, on foot. And very often the Chinese would send fresh troops when it happened 2-3 times. They would send fresh troops to cut off the, you know, the retreat.
Yes.
And a lot of them died, you know, during the retreat. But more importantly, I think, is what they could do. You know, they were fighting with just raw courage, you know, and taking on the biggest army in the world, the PLA.
Yes.
And I think that for me was a formidable thing to, you know, even
the unsung heroes.
Yes, unsung, completely unsung, and you know, not much is spoken about them. The resistance continued from 1960 to 1974. Then there were a lot of, you know, there were internal as well as external strives that, you know, ended the resistance. Internally, they got divided. Externally, Nixon came as the president of America, and one of the biggest things that, you know, when he wanted to end the Cold War with China, they think their first demand for rapprochement was that the U.S. had to cut off the, you know, the support that they were giving to the Tibetans. And so that's how it ended in 1974, very, very tragically, with the death of General Wangdu. He's highly revered among the Chinese, among the Tibetan warriors. And that's how it all ended. And the resistance came back. By then, what they realized is that the Tibetan community had moved on. You know, it's been 14 years. And they had moved on.
It didn't matter to them anymore.
Yeah, it didn't. And they were like into peace, ahimsa, and, you know, all that. And non-violence.
But this happens, you know, in these kind of
But for the people who came back to try and, you know, from the hands that held guns, that now had to knot carpets or learn new skills, that was really difficult.
That was traumatic in a way.
It was.
But they made it,
It was very difficult. And, you know, they always hankered for some kind of a validation.
And did they get it?
Yes. I mean, almost 18 years later, you know, they were called for the long life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And out there, for the first time, the community, I mean, from the Kasag and all, they got a certificate which gave them their names, their numbers, and their father's name, and the place where they belonged to, and how they had worked.
That's
I mean,
wonderful.
they traveled, you know, worked for the Tibetan freedom.
Good
they
to
got
hear
that.
And so then, that's amazing.
They got that from the Americans as well, you know.
They did.
Yeah,
yes,
they
I
did.
heard about this. Yes, I read about this.
Yeah, but it was in 2010. The Americans, you know, who had, you know, deserted them in 1974. They had, I mean, so many years had gone back.
For them.
They did. And I think it was also a way of validating the connections that they had with the Tibetans. And so in Colorado, they had a plaque which has been put up, you know, which actually talks about the connections that they had at that point of time. Yes.
So tell me about the title of the book, Tibet with My Eyes Closed, and why you chose it. And I think I'd like you to read Lasang Shering's poem.
This book, this title, I actually, you know, I love the title because the truth is I haven't been to Tibet like a lot of my people whose stories I've told.
You see it with the eyes closed.
Yes, everything I know is with my eyes closed. But who knows, I might come up with a book which says Tibet with my eyes open.
Wonderful.
Who knows?
We look forward to that, I'm sure.
Who knows? Okay, may I read this?
Yes, of course.
Tibet with my eyes closed. I see Tibet's clear blue skies, her towering snow-peaked peaks, her verdant hills and valleys, but only with my eyes closed. I see my dear homeland. I see the home where I was born. I see all my childhood friends, but only with my eyes closed. I'm returning to free Tibet. I'm back in my hometown. I'm reunited with my family, but only in my dreams. Why is it that it is only in my dreams and only with my eyes closed that I see Tibet? And why is it that good things in my life happen to me only in my dreams? Will I wake up one morning to find myself in Tibet and really, truly find that I am not dreaming? Yes. Will I ever return to an independent Tibet, and will I see Tibet with my eyes?
Yeah, Thank you, Madhu. I hope viewers, I hope you enjoy that enthralling session. And I hope you read the book. Thank you so much for being with us, and thank you, Madhu, for a most enjoyable session.
Thank you.
Thank you. Exciting part of the session, the question and answers. So we begin with the first one. I would like to know about the relationships, ideologies, and food habits of the Tibetan people.
Okay, the Tibetans, the relationship among Tibetans is very, very strong. They are very, very family oriented. The ideology is the same as what is being taught by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, which is peace, ahimsa, compassion, and giving. And as for the food habits, the Tibetans, of course, there is that buttermilk, butter tea, and there is this a lot of tupa and tento and meat-based thing. But I think every Tibetan who is here in India is very well versed with the Indian food. So dal, bhat, sabzi.
That's coming to the cuisine.
Yes,
okay. Yes. Okay, the next one is, what are your thoughts on inclusion of Tibetans in mainstream India, or the lack of it? What are your thoughts about the inclusion of the Tibetans in mainstream India?
Okay. The inclusion of the Tibetans is there. I mean, Albert, a little known, because I think one of the biggest inclusions that have been there, it started in 1962,
yes.
Pretty clandestinely, with a lot of Tibetan men joining the SFF, the 22 establishment. We see a lot of them ending up as high altitude warriors.
Yes.
They've done enormous work recently in Galwan. Mm-hmm. So that is there in the public eye. The inclusion is there in that way about men joining the forces. As for seeing them in mainstream in India, a lot of them are there in the IT sector in Bangalore. They're also there in the sweater business. You see a lot of them in
rugs.
Rugs, Tibetan carpets, and small restaurants and hotels.
Yes.
So that is there. But overall, I think they're there everywhere. But most of them want to go out of India, so that is one of the yes.
Who's your favorite person that you met during this journey of writing the book?
I think everyone. I think it's been a deeply humbling experience. I think each and every one who told me that story is has left a mark.
Yes.
So I think one of the person whom I really want to thank from the bottom of my heart is the one who gave me the beads, the lady with the broom.
Yes.
And I wear her. Yeah, I wear her beads, and I think that's something that it's a prayer bead, and I wear them. I wear them at work. So yeah.
And what is one common trait that you really admire about the Tibetan community? Is there a particular trait which really touched you?
I think the enormous warmth and genuineness. They are at any given point of time themselves. I think no other community has that kind of this thing, which is all embracing. They're not there judgmental. They're there for you, and they are who they are. So I think that is something that is difficult to beat.
Yes, I always feel a sense of calm when I meet them.
Yeah.
Did you feel that? I mean, you
Oh,
always
yes.
feel,
Oh,
you know,
yes.
it sort of emanates from their
Yes,
personality.
yes. And I think it's a lot has to do with the Buddhist religion. Yeah.
Okay, then, which aspect of Tibet culture do you feel most worried about not being preserved? I mean, which part of the culture is most important and must be preserved at all costs?
I think when His Holiness came to India and they set up the government in exile in Dharamshala, I think one of the things that they went about very, very systematically doing was preserving their culture. Whether it was the religious text, whether it was their ways, whether it was the attire, and all the Tibetans, they followed that very, very strictly. They follow what is to be worn, how their marriages are to be celebrated, all that. They're very, 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 very Tibetan that way. I don't see them losing that Tibetanness, but I think one of the things that I really fear for them is, I think it's an unspoken part, is that what would happen to the Tibetan community when His Holiness, who's like a huge umbrella, it's like, somebody in the spine, like a mountain for them, holding up, and the world looks up to him, is no more. I mean, I fear that for them. That's the
only thing. Yeah. Otherwise, you feel they're preserving.
Oh yes, they.
What was the most moving moment of art while writing this book?
There's so many of them that it's very, very difficult to actually just pinpoint one person or one moment.
Was it when you're relating about the mother meeting her son?
I mean,
that was one of them.
Yes, that was one of them. Or I walking up to this place in Dehradun, the Senshai Ashram, and I meet this old woman and I see her, calling out to the dogs. And that's the Kuttama, who's there, and she's just feeding them, and how she goes about looking for each and every one of them. And she told me, when, I can't find one. You wait out here, I go and look for, and so, I mean, each and every experience has been very profound, very moving, and deeply humbling, because it also made me examine who I am as a person.
So writing this book made an impact and it influenced you personally?
Oh yes, yes. I mean, I don't know if I'm calmer, but I think I've learned one thing, to be a little more mindful.
Mindful.
Yes.
Well, should India recognize Tibet? That's a question.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Yes.
Yes. So you say yes. And is there any spiritual lesson you learned during the writing of this book? I think that's already been. But you answered that, I think.
Yeah.
Did it affect you in your own spiritual journey? Did the writing of this book affect you? Even needed some kind of deliberate mark?
Yeah, it did. There's an very, very old Tibetan saying, and the saying is like, if I tell you my dream, you won't remember it.
Yes.
If I act out my dream, perhaps you will remember part of it. But if I make you and involve you in my dream, the dream becomes yours as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they've been able to do, and I've actually
sharing great dreams now.
Yes, completely.
And what else is there? Well, I don't think but what do you feel about the Indian government's stance towards the Tibetans? So is that really part of a writer's? Would you like to answer that, or is it part of a writer?
No, I think we should leave the government's job to the government themselves.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. My connection was more on one-to-one with a person-to-person.
Yes. So I think these are the questions. Are there any more? We have time.
I think Shireen has sent us.
Sharing, yeah, I've got all of them which you forwarded and moving on like you do.
Okay.
Yes. Would you like to talk about the cover? It's a very interesting cover of the book.
Oh yes.
The artist and so on.
Yeah, the cover. We wanted. I really wanted a cover which would epitomize the entire, all the stories that this book carried. And my husband's friend, he sketches, and he uses the colors that you see are very much the colors that he has used. He uses the color pencils, and so this is being done by my husband's NDA friend. They date back to when they were 16-year-old Vikram Singh and Varma, and Vicky actually did this for me. And so it's entire thing. The Patola Palace is shaded, the orange and the red. I said I love red,
Yes,
so just
yes.
put the book in red.
But that's last song.
Yes, it is.
We have another question just come in. What was the biggest challenge while writing this book?
I think the biggest challenge was that when you speak to the Tibetan people, they're so hugely reticent.
Yes.
They don't say much. And so I think for me to be able to tell their stories, I actually researched a lot. I mean, what was there at that point of time? What kind of lives did they lead? And most of the conversation and everything, so that you piece together the bones and flesh it, has just come out of the imagination, and I've imagined that their lives must be that what I've written, at that point of time.
Did you find the elderly people more reticent than the young, or vice versa? The pain is the same, isn't it? Pain.
I think for the elderly, the pain is much more. Yeah.
They saw free Tibet, and they
yeah.
see it only with their eyes closed.
Yes.
But the young, were they more forthcoming?
The young is everything the young people know about Tibet is what they've heard from their parents and grandparents. So, their pain is not so immediate. It's not that it's not there, the Tibetanness, the desire to be going back home. It's there. But everything that they know is, in a way, what they have heard. The immediacy of that loss, what their parents and grandparents went through, is not theirs.
Yes. And when you when you were interviewing the people, when you entered their homes, did you really feel as if you were entering another world? I mean, or was there or did you feel that sort of they're Indianized in some ways, or was it very special? Was it very Tibetan? Or is there a difference in there?
In a way, I think what really stood out for me when you entered a Tibetan home was the altar.
Was the altar?
Yeah, there was this lamp which was always burning. There was this holiness, this photograph. The prayer beads were always there. That is not there as a Hindu, it's not there for me. I mean, there is of course the lamp, the incense, but
inside Hindus they keep their the mandirs away from you. When you enter, you don't see. So always in that eastern corner.
Yeah.
So that's a special place where they have their place of worship. Is it facing like east, or is it a particular corner direction wise? So as soon as you enter, you see it.
As soon as you enter, you see it. And it's there. It depends on what how rich the family is. So that's there. But having said that, there was another friend of mine whose house I went to, but his puja room was completely away. It wasn't there in his living room. It was away. So it depends on, I think, the people whom I met, especially the ones living in Jambaling or the old age home, their altars were by the bedside.
Always in the bedside. And Losar is the main.
It is.
That's the India.
Yeah.
So any more questions? I think we are done with the questions. What would you like to say about the book? Could you talk to the viewers about, while we have time, how to read the book? Did they read it from sequence to sequence? Or?
No, I just leave it to them. They should just read it the way they want to. Yeah. I mean, some people may be attracted to the colors, that we've talked about in the flags. But just read it the way you want to, because this is just an offering.
Journey into,
it is an offering
into Tibet, yes. Yeah. So I think, Madhu, we are done with the questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, viewers.
Thank you.